Are you struggling to create meaningful content and sick of scrolling through a bunch of meaningless content? Well, in today's video, I've got 3 surefire strategies that you can start using right now to create more meaningful content. What's up? It's David K, aka Threadability, and if you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button so that we can stay connected and that you can check out more videos on creating content and finding your personal bold style. All right, so let me know if you've been there. You've snapped a photo or a video and you decided to post it, and you're waiting for those likes and comments to roll in, and suddenly they don't, and you're wondering why. I mean, you created some good top fire content, whatever you want to call it, and nothing's coming. So it must be the platform's fault, right? Like Instagram and TikTok just doing you dirty. Well, let me stop you for a second. Maybe we need to re-examine what you actually posted and see if it was value packed or more like a value meal. I have been in your shoes. I spent a lot of time creating a piece of content. I posted it and then nothing happened and I got mad. I worked really hard on it and everyone should like it, right? Well, think about it this way. As a content consumer, you're scrolling, swiping, tapping, and even scrolling some more through tons and tons of content, right? But what type of content actually makes you stop and connect? I'm sure it usually has some sort of meaning to you as the consumer. So why am I making this video? Well, number one, I am sick of shallow, meaningless content that we get inundated with every single day. Number two, it's time that we create more meaningful content because it's more fulfilling. So let's talk about the 3 ways to actually create more meaningful content. We're gonna be talking about defining your message, adding value to every piece of content, and planning that content accordingly. Strategy number 1, define your message. First things first, you gotta figure out your big picture message. What is the whole goal of your platform? I know this is kind of a big ask because it's such a big picture item, but establishing this will help drive your content and give you a foundation to work from. I've taken a few courses on this, which I can link down below if you're interested, but the main themes of them have been find your passion, figure out how you can provide a service around it, and use your skill set. That'll define your message. That passion piece means determining what you really love and what you're a personal expert on and could spend tons of time doing. For example, if someone asked you a question on it, you could talk for it for days and days and days. It doesn't even need to be something that you went to school for or have tons of technical training in. Just what sets your heart on fire? Next, think about what service you can provide with it. And what I really mean is, what problem can you solve for your audience that has to deal with your passion? Originally for me, it was developing content around defining your bold personal style because I wanted to help people feel better in their clothes and provide tips and encouragement to do that so that we could all feel confident. Now, I've also realized that the actual process of creating content is a passion for me, and I can provide tips on how I do that to help anyone getting started. I know that finding your niche is such a buzzword in the content world, but that's really what we're doing here. And the more narrow and the more defined that you can make it, the easier it's gonna make content that matters. So go deep with it, dig in. That also brings out a good point. The key is also to figure out what content matters to you, because if it doesn't matter to you, it's probably not gonna matter to anyone else. So, maybe skip the selfie with the peace sign or whatever you ate for breakfast. No hate to anybody that does that. You should also define who your intended audience is. If you know who you're creating content for, it's a lot easier to define your message and figure out what kind of content they want. This gives you a sense of why you're creating content in the first place and further defines your message. Think of this as basically defining the mission statement for your content and yourself as a content creator. You want to figure out the why, the what, and the for who of it all. Now, if this is already starting to sound overwhelming, make sure you shoot me a message. We can talk through it. We can even schedule a session if you want. Having this in place sets you apart from the person who is just posting throwaway content. Speaking of throwaway content, can we just agree to stop posting it? Strategy number 2, create content that has value. Now, creating content that has value is probably the whole crux of what we're talking about when we say how to create more meaningful content. Maybe you're someone who's just posting as a hobby or, doesn't really care what happens out of the content you create. That's totally fine. Or maybe you're even just someone who's a celebrity or really great at just posting a selfie and getting a ton of engagement on it. That's great too. So maybe that means that you don't have to put a lot of meaning into your content because it will get engaged with. But sadly, and I'm assuming because you're watching this video, that doesn't work for most of us. So instead, we need to figure out how to create content that adds value to our intended audience because we know our message and what we're trying to do with it. This goes back to that service part that I was talking about before. Are you providing tips, education, product reviews, entertainment, or something that your audience can take away from your content and that makes them want to come back for more? Put yourself in your audience shoes and think about what they would actually want to get out of it. So create the content with your audience in mind first. If you're popping onto a story or a live stream, maybe your value there is just to connect, and that's okay. There doesn't need to be a lot that goes into that. Just be clear on that. I also want to say that value does not equal expensive equipment or what you created it with. There's value and quality in what you say, what you write, what you shoot, however you share it. Only you can determine the value that you can provide, but start thinking about it in terms of what your audience can take away instead of just centering yourself in your content and trying to get Instagram famous. A hot tip, also use this value idea to evaluate the content that you're consuming. Like I said, there's so much content thrown at us every single day. We're trying to create meaningful content ourselves, but we should also be trying to consume meaningful content. Let's all push forward together. Strategy number 3, plan your content in advance. Failing to plan any sort of content is going to make it suffer in quality and value. Now, before you come at me, I know content like stories or live streams or TikToks can be pretty off the cuff, so you're not planning those too far in advance, although I would encourage you to think about those weekly. I'm talking about that content that you have really high expectations for. If you want that content to go big, if you want your audience to get something from it and grow a community around it, why would you not plan it in advance? First, plan your content with that overall message in mind. So what we just tried to define, make sure it's bleeding into the actual content that you're creating. Second, ask yourself if this piece of content is going to add value or make an impact, and in what way. A good piece of advice that I got recently is to start with the question of why would anyone want to see your content anyway? Starting with the why will get you to a better what. So here's my power tip for this. First, with photo content, start with the message and even writing the caption out first. Then you can go into location and styling and all the other stuff. But you know how hard it is when we create an image and then try to write a caption for it. Imagine how much easier it would be if you already knew what messaging was going behind it and that influenced the creative, so then all you had to do was snap the photos. Plus, then you know that that image that you are going to post clearly aligns with your message and the caption is providing some sort of value, so you've got it all put together. That's meaningful content. The same power tip goes for your video. Outline or have a script ready that's connected to your topic, that connects to your message, and provides that value that you want, so that then you can just plan the shots and make sure everything flows. It's streamlined, and again, you can be confident that you're creating content that has impact and relates to what you want to do. If you want people to care about what you're creating, then try carefully creating it. So that's it. Those are my 3 strategies for creating meaningful content. Again, define your message, create content that has value to it, and plan it ahead of time. If you care about creating meaningful content, that means you need to invest some time in this whole process so you can get clear on what your objectives are with it in the first place. Investing in this process is going to get you to a point where you're only creating meaningful content. Make sure you let me know down in the comments if you got something out of today's video and if we need to break into these topics even further. Also, make sure you're checking out my Instagram @threadability and subscribe to my blog because I'm going to be emailing out a worksheet that'll help you get started with this process. As always, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time.